play soccer today.
All right, here we are.
Where?
We are here for our weekly Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting. It is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. We're here in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street in Salem, Oregon, where it's a beautiful morning this morning. Just gorgeous. Down here in the valley, up in the canyon, I hear it's pretty smoky. But as always, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'll join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It was good to be out neighborhood night out last night, National Neighborhood Night Out with the sheriff, and see all of us out there saying hi to the people and eating in 3 places.
I did not eat in 3 places, let's be real.
You had tacos.
I did have tacos in East Salem,
Yeah.
and they were amazing.
I ate in 3 places.
I know you did. I'm super impressed.
I ate my way through National Night Out last night.
That chicken in Sublimity, though, looked really
I
good.
had a piece of fried chicken in Sublimity. It was pretty good. It was
Really
Roth's fried chicken, and then I had a hamburger patty from that. What was the name of that? I actually saved the
It's a local beef company.
local beef company. I just
Was it
ate-
H&K?
No, it wasn't HK. I actually had had them do some work for me years ago, and they do really good work.
H&K?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really good. They're in Jefferson.
There you go.
It's right by the
Jefferson, holy moly, the whole
Well,
town
it's a-
showed up for the Jefferson
Yeah.
National
Probably
Night Out.
400 people there.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I think more than the town.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to business here. First thing we have is public comment, and we have David signed up this morning. Welcome, David.
County Commissioners, I'm asking for,
Gotta introduce yourself.
my name's David Beam. I'm a spokesman for disability people in Oregon, in Salem area. I'd like to be on the fair board one more term. I'd like to be on 4-year term for the fair, because I know what's needed to be done for disability people out there. And I would like to be on that. And I'm asking you, get more funding for next term for the county fair, make it a little bit longer, more people would come. Because some people can't make it because disability people live in the foster homes, can't get there because they're too far out. So I was thinking about looking at that. So I'm asking that you and the county will approve me for the county one and the state fair board, be on the state one too, because you don't have a disability person on that. So I think that it'll be good for Salem area. We'll have that done for the county. I think that would help the state more often, and we can raise more money that way. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We really appreciate you being out at the fair this year and all the work that you did to help us out. So,
And I was
we'll
wondering,
pass that on to Tamara.
and I was thinking that Cameron and the commissioners will send a letter to the governor, ask her why come you don't have a disability person and for the fair board.
I know somebody who could do that. You're looking at me.
I think that would be better that way. All the commissioners would go for that. I think more people would go coming to county fair too, and the state one. More funding we can get that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Nice
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, the state fair is gearing up.
We had
I hope people can join us that Friday night. There's going to be, they typically do, the foundation does a fundraiser. Rich Kansky and the foundation do a fundraiser in the garden the week before the fair starts off. This year they're going to do it actually the night of Friday night during the fair over in the garden. So it should be really interesting.
We had a great county fair this year. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Well,
It
yeah.
was gangbusters.
Yeah, set
David shut
records.
the thing
And,
down.
Commissioner Nyquist called and tried to rub it in that they had better numbers than we did, but I don't think they did. I don't think they beat us.
They did not have better numbers, and then we
yeah.
talked about it at the event on Thursday at the Canyon, and I helped him see how he didn't have that.
Yeah.
Can't trust those Lynn County commissioners.
No, he thought he was spry on that.
Okay, Scott, you're up. It's your week to do an update on the wildfire recovery. Welcome.
Yeah, so Scott McClure, Long-Term Disaster Recovery Manager. Report number 5, August 4th. I guess I should start the slideshow. Yeah, so dwelling permits, those are the same numbers as last time, but basically we're sitting about 27% rebuilt on permits, and then septic 38%. Just a note here, interesting effort, we have a couple church-based groups that are coming out to do construction projects, and the way it works is they do the construction, so they need the homeowner to get the materials lined up, site planning. One thing we've dealt with in Oregon is you also need licensed contractors for the main trade, so they've had to get that figured out. A nice thing, though, what's happened is that some of the folks, variety of reasons, it's a foreign territory for most folks. Hey, let's go figure out how to build a house. That's not a normal activity for most folks. So what the long-term recovery group, our private group, is setting up is a process to be able to help people with that. So they can actually have an advisor that then helps them through the process, any extra things you need, help with the site planning, get folks that can help out in those areas. Some models around the country, if you evolve it even further, you can start layering on even like, mortgage assistance, other kind of planning. And also just at some point, if somebody's just like open to anything, and then just an advisor that can just kind of walk them through, different options. One thing we're throwing around obviously is tiny homes. That might not be on somebody's radar, but for like a couple that might be a reasonable option that they're thinking about. So at some point, it'd be nice if it could evolve where somebody could come and they could say, hey, here's a manufactured home, here's a modular, here's a stick built, here's some styles, and they kind of walk through some options and then kind of work them through that process. So hopefully that'll be a good thing to get set up over time. I know the LTRG had a really robust discussion at their last meeting on how to get this stood up. They're still in the kind of the forming phase, and so they're getting those processes put in place, but I think it'd be real valuable down the road.
It's interesting you said that, Scott, about licensed contractors. I remember years ago, our church went down to New Orleans to help recovery with Katrina. We sent teams down there, and I don't recall them running into problems with licensed contractors to help with rebuilds, et cetera, but
That's
maybe.
probably because Oregon's just about the only state in the country that requires these stringent licenses. So like plumbers who are licensed in Oregon can go anywhere in the country and plumb. But you can't come anywhere in the country to Oregon and plumb. You have to go to school.
It's not reciprocal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just stricter. That was one of the first ones that popped up. It's like, okay, we need to figure this out. So.
It doesn't cost us any more that way either. No, don't get me started.
Oh, no. Okay, I won't then.
Okay. Keep going. Get me back on focus.
Okay, yeah, property cleanup, we're about 48% on cleanup. They had a little bit of slowdown because they changed contractors, but hopefully that'll pick up. One thing we're hoping too is some of the areas of the state have actually are ahead of schedule on theirs, so maybe at some point they can shift crews our direction. Hazard tree removal, I'm still doing well on that. They're still doing some marking, but getting their progress done there, about 42% on that too. And then county-led recovery projects. One we talked about a little bit, some more details today, is the financial needs analysis. We hired a firm to come in and help particularly the cities of Gates and Detroit, with what they're doing. And you take a place that, in some cases, a lot of just damage to the records themselves, but also in this case, how do you go forward when your budget just got blown up, essentially? And so in this case, the budgets are in place for July 1. They've got tracking systems for all the federal, state, and local monies coming in. Detroit's caught up on their audits, and then they'll start work on the kind of the normal cycle coming up here real soon. Gates needs to go back a little bit, get an auditor for 2019 and then 2021. And then financial statements, they'll get those tied up and then they'll start working on moving forward. So they're in good shape there, and then when they get those statements ready, then they're going to start doing projection work. So then looking at, okay, here is your revenues before, here's where they are now, and then trying to project out, some stair-stepping, how those will come back over time. And with those cities, water revenue was huge, but then, property taxes is impacted, tourism taxes is impacted, so they'll have to take a look at that. Communications outreach, we've got our firm, actually, they've developed a survey. They're reaching out to partners that are involved in the effort, seeing what their needs are, how they can push out information, how do we get their information, out in front of people, so they're building that. We're still, we found out we actually got funding from the state for the LTRG for the website, so now we need to figure out how to either use our money or their money to get the website upgraded, so hopefully we'll get direction on that pretty soon. Gates website, they're actually getting that set up, and so the key thing here is Gates doesn't have a website, so it's actually be a first-time website that'll be really great for them. Economic impact opportunities analysis, Eco Northwest, we had our kickoff meeting, so they're starting work now. I had a really good meeting with them. It was kind of fun. They were expecting just kind of a topical overview from me, but I've absorbed so much from being here the few months, I kind of downloaded everything. They're like, oh, wow, that was really helpful. So, and then got them a few studies and a couple contacts of folks to talk to. And then likewise, housing, we did another pitch to the state with some concrete proposals on, hey, we got a couple sites that are more temporary, one long-term. I think we got good feedback from them. They seemed very interested, and I think they just said, hey, let's keep evolving this. Let's get some more information, so we'll circle back with them again and hopefully get to a yes at some point. That'd be good, wouldn't it? So then on the health impact assessment, yeah, the OSU team started last week, same thing. We've got them put in touch with partners that were involved directly in the effort, so like the integration team, Gates Community Church, just anybody that had really direct contact out in the field, so they'll start doing their work. And then a nice one, the Better City, who's the consultant doing the visioning project, was actually in town last week doing interviews. I know they met with the commissioners. They were very impressed with all the comments you had, and they said that was very good meetings. They met with folks in the Salem area and up in the canyon, and then actually got up and did a tour up there too. And same thing, getting them a lot of base information on prior studies so they can get a feel for everything. Interesting one, I think it's probably happened for folks that don't go up there, is as we're driving up there, they were like, this doesn't seem as bad as we thought it was going to be. And there's still, a mix of areas that are still green and otherwise, but what you don't get is because everything's been cleaned up, so it's hard to see, where things were. So one thing that we did with the Eco Northwest and these folks, we gave them access to our imagery files so that they can actually go community by community and get a better feel for what they're dealing with. And then just some other points. We had our action after report. Okay, that was inverted, after action report. On July 22nd, Santiam High School. Had really good comment, had nice attendance from the community, broke out into 3 groups, and just got observations on what went right, what things could be improved over time. That'll be integrated with the report, and then we get that finalized. We'll have some good action plans going forward. One thing that kind of ties in is Mill City's working with rural development initiatives on a Main Street kind of downtown redevelopment. So that's nice. So we've got now a focused effort on Detroit and Gates, and then Mill City will do another one that we can kind of layer into a broader. At some point, it'd be nice to actually broaden it back out to the whole canyon and actually kind of try to get an overall look at everything, kind of what's your role, and maybe at a point people could start thinking of, well, maybe somebody needs to fill a different niche, and who might that be? Similar effort at some point is going to happen with all the big landowners, kind of the forest properties, the rec providers, taking that same look. I think they were going to initiate a meeting a little bit sooner, but since fire season is here, that's deferred a lot of activities in that area, so it'll probably be a little bit later. Also, long-term recovery group, we're going to try to use World Renew, which is a really good system for gathering information so we can get an overall scale and impact, what the needs are, and we can pitch things better out in the world to other folks. We think a lot of the data is potentially in place, but it's kind of consolidating that, seeing if it works within their system. So we'll see where that goes. In communication with other groups around the state, some other folks are using World Renew also, trying to get that process in place. Just a side note, I had a focus on one of my meetings with Lincoln County, who had the Otis area with the fire, and it's interesting just having people say the exact same things that you're dealing with. I mean, just almost everything we're dealing with is there. That one was kind of poignant for me, was they said because it affected just a small pocket in Lincoln County, kind of the survivors feel like they're kind of been left at this point, like the rest of the community's moved on, everything's reopened, and then they're just still struggling in a lot of cases. I thought that was an interesting comment. I met with the new LTRG interim manager just to talk about recovery efforts and what we're doing, how we interface with their group. And then did an enjoyable presentation at the Salem State and Rotary Club on the county's recovery program. That was a nice one. And that was the type of my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? I have a question. Sure. And I think we ran this last time too. It looks like the permit data is about a month old.
Yeah, we'll get the they clock in first of the month, so they get the new data, then we'll get that in for the next report.
At the first of every month?
Yeah, then they run the report.
Okay, if you could get that to us,
yeah,
I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Scott. And this is good format, appreciate it.
Okay.
We, like Commissioner said, just have I wish we had the data, like, real time, right? It'd be kind of nice, and when a permit gets filed, we had a little clock that went boing, right? So, because the progress, and I think you made a comment about people said, well, it doesn't look that bad. And I can relate to that, where as you drive up, and especially lately with the new contractors and cleaning up the trees, you can tell, you know, they're just getting cleaned up quicker than they were. But you get into the towns, and because I think we prioritize, and want to thank our Public Works Department and ODOT for prioritizing main streets and getting those cleaned up first. You drive downtown and it's clean, there's just nothing there. Just at least you don't have a bunch of rumble and blowing up cars and fire trucks that were there before. But we are, you know, when you, I guess you don't want to always compare yourself to other people, but compared to other wildfires, we are making some really good progress. But it's obviously not fast enough for us, right? And so appreciate, Commissioner, all the things you're doing with the housing up there, and it's just, it's crazy. And then now we got these other wildfires facing us, right? Let's keep our fingers crossed. It's only the first week of August. And the one that came through in Labor Day had started, what, 2 weeks from now? So we're still keeping our fingers crossed, so thank you.
Yep. All right.
Consent calendar?
Hmm?
Do you want to move on to the consent calendar?
Actually, I saw Katrina here. Are you here for that action item on Health Department? Because I didn't see your name on here, and I saw you walk in, and I go, did you want to say something in presentations? Okay.
I knew he was going to call you out.
Well,
I just
mean,
felt it. As
I
soon as
looked
she
at the
came in, I was
agenda,
like,
and I go, I see Alyssa's on there, and Ryan's on there, and I didn't see Katrina's name, and I thought, well, maybe she wanted to come up and say something. Huh? Well, we're gonna see.
Commissioner Cameron
we're-
just saw a really smart person in the room and was like, hey, let's get some knowledge while she's
No
here.
kidding, right. So, yeah, I think it's your turn.
I don't, yeah. It is my turn, except for she's showing me an agenda that's different than the one that I have. I don't have that agenda.
I know Brenda sent out an updated agenda yesterday. Is this the updated one that's printed out in front of us? Which one do you have? What
This
does,
one says item 2 under action is Katrina and Alyssa. Elisa? Elisa.
Is it the foodborne illness one?
yeah, okay, we'll get there.
Okay, it's fine. You can all come up. So,
We like-
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent calendar under item 1, Board of Commissioners OLCC application for South Falls Cafe LLC DBA South Falls Cafe, Sublimity, Oregon. And number 2, under finance, approve 2 quitclaim deeds for the sale of property tax ID numbers R26731 from Marion County to Laura's Investment LLC and number R47517 from Marion County to William R.P.'s III Family Trust.
I'll second the motion.
Need a motion second. Any further discussion? I do have a question. Jan, where is the South Falls Cafe in Sublimity, Oregon?
idea.
I can tell you.
I know where it is.
Silver Falls State
That's what I thought, yeah, I was like, I think this is a Silver Falls.
Oh, but it's a Sublimity address.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
the
long ways
lower
away.
one by the South Falls, not the conference center.
And they have alcohol there.
Now they do. This is the first time in many years.
Perfect.
Cool.
The conference center always had it, so you know they have the cabins and the conference center on the north side.
Yeah, we'll have to
I've
get up
never
there and
been in
visit
and
the
out.
South Falls Cafe. Take a little hike. Yeah, good. Okay, any further discussion?
Mill City's getting a brewery. We're gonna talk about random things. They're gonna come
Oh.
for that soon. So just so you know.
Oh, yeah. Is that, that's the old hotel down below that he's
Maybe.
I actually took a tour
Yeah.
inside. He's built the restaurant inside the old walls.
Yes,
That's
I'm
pretty
super
cool.
excited because
Yeah.
I like to kayak up there, so I can have a beer after.
That's cool. Well, you kayak, I'll have a beer.
Perfect.
All right. Any further discussion? We need to get back on
I
focus
know.
here. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right. Okay, first item under action, Health and Human Services. We have a couple of them here today, or I think 3 of them under Health and Human Services. two of them. Consider approval of a contract for services with a WorkSafe Services, Inc. in the amount of $189,600 to perform urinalysis collection services for Marion County 2021 through 2023. Specialty court program is retroactive to July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. Ryan.
Morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Ryan Matthews, Administrator with Marion County Health and Human Services. And I am here seeking an approval for a contract for services with WorkSafe to provide urinalysis services to the Marion County Circuit Court and specifically to support the 5 specialty courts. You may recall a couple weeks ago we brought this agenda item forward about a special procurement request. This is the actual execution of the contract that was tied to the special procurement approval that occurred, I believe, 2 weeks ago. So since then, the way the process works is we posted the intent and the approval of the special procurement to allow for any protest period if there's anything associated with other community providers that maybe wanted to, compete for this line of business or felt like the process wasn't properly done. We received no protests related to this contract, so we're back here now seeking approval of the award. Marion County Health and Human Services is the third-party administrator for the CJC grant. WorkSafe was a vendor that was named in the CJC grant to support the 5 specialty courts, and we are fulfilling our process as the grant administrator and third-party administrator to execute the contract on the Marion County Circuit Court's behalf, and then we will be responsible for receiving the invoices, processing the payments, doing the financial reporting for the CJC grant. So I don't know if there's any other specific questions around this contract.
Jane, you were looking at me. Okay. Yeah, Ryan, I just want to thank the health department for doing the administration and all this work for the courts. I know that's the transition this year, and I know they appreciate it too. So
yeah, we're happy to help. Our specialty courts do amazing work
Yeah,
in our
they do.
community. So.
Okay,
Okay, you ready?
you bet.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract for services with a WorkSafe Services Incorporated in the amount of $189,600 to perform urinalysis collection services for the Marion County 2021-2023 Specialty Court Programs retroactive from July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023.
I second the motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners.
So, and I'm looking at my computer, and the agenda on my computer is correct. I was just telling Brenda, thank you for that, if I just would open up my agenda. The next item on our agenda is to consider approval of intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $200,000 to administer foodborne illness prevention program on behalf of OHA through June 30th, 2023.
Mr. Chair, it looks like the only change from our paper agendas was Katrina's name.
Exactly. Katrina and Elisa, welcome.
Great. Good morning. Katrina Rothenberger, Public Health Division Director with Marion County Health and Human Services.
And I'm Elisa Zastopol with Marion County Environmental Health. I'm the Program Supervisor.
And we're here today seeking approval for an environmental health intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority. This is the final 2 years of a typical 5-year IGA. There were just a lot of amendments that Oregon Health Authority was issuing, and so they went through the process in 2019 to begin cleaning up some of the contract language. And it was put on hold during 2020. And so now we're in 2021 picking up that work. This did go through a process with OHA and several local public health authorities with regard to the work group to consolidate this IGA. There's some clarification on using our statewide database, which is HealthSpace. Clarification on our remittance report process. OHA provides translated materials, language around oversight, and our pool program. So this IGA does cover tourist facilities, pools, restaurants, bed and breakfast, commissaries, mobile units, warehouses, and vending machine licensing programs. The financial impacts listed on the agenda review form have not changed. And this has been our process with the Oregon Health Authority since years. And these figures here haven't changed in the previous couple of years. They do go through a remittance review process based on the OHA budget. We do remit a percentage of our fees to Oregon Health Authority to carry out the food illness prevention program, which assists us with food outbreaks, tracking potentially contaminated food throughout the state and locals when there's an outbreak. Do you want to add anything, Elisa?
No, I think you covered it really well, but if you guys have any questions, I can answer.
I have a question.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So
Probably the same one I do.
the fee that we're paying OHA, it actually provides us a service. We're not just paying them to exist.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, yes.
And so what are we getting for that fee?
Do you want to go into
Yeah,
that?
they provide training, so they're supposed to do training statewide for all the counties. So they do that twice a year.
So they train you? Or
Right, they
train the
provide,
counties?
they'll provide like a conference where they talk about subjects like rule changes or rule updates, and they get everybody together and they talk to us about it and train us about upcoming changes. So they do that. They do provide translated materials. We have a lot of handouts that we give to restaurant operators that explain technicalities of rules. So they provide that for us. Technical advice, like if we need help interpreting a rule, they provide that. So they do, and then also they will assist with foodborne outbreak investigations as needed, if needed.
Okay, thank you.
So there are some counties that have said, no, you can do this yourself to the state, right?
Yeah, there are a few counties who may not do all of the environmental health IGA. Not every county does the pool and spa program.
No, they all do it. It's a package. So if you're going to do food, pool, and lodging, you do it all. But for pools, you can give back plan review. So instead of having the local, say our inspectors do the plan review, we would make OHA do all the plan review for pools, but we would still be responsible for the annual inspections of pools.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So when the tourist facility program, what is that?
That's our hotels and bed and breakfasts and organizational camps. So like Camp YMCA.
So what does it do?
We inspect them. So we do sanitation inspections on an annual basis or semi-annual, depending on how long they operate. For hotels, we will look at the rooms, and we do that yearly.
But why are we paying the state for you to do it?
We're not paying the state, in a sense. We collect all of the licensing fees, and then we remit a portion of those fees to the state. So.
Yeah, but why? Why do they take any part of that? What's their role? What are we paying them to do?
Like I said, my understanding is that they, as described in that contract, the IGA, is that they're required to provide training, they're required to provide educational materials. I don't know exact all the details.
My understanding of it is that they allow us to do this because we're basically doing this pursuant to state statute, and OHA has authority to carry out the statutory obligations
Right.
here.
So we have to pay them to let us do something?
And we collect fees because they allow us to collect fees basically on their behalf and to do this work, right? Otherwise, we would be in an alternate universe where there wasn't a state statutory scheme. We could potentially set up a county scheme and have our own fees, and then we would collect our own fees pursuant to the county scheme. But in this scenario, because it's a state statutory scheme, a state regulatory scheme, they basically are giving us the authority to collect fees, and as part of that, we give them part of what we collect. And
Okay.
if we were to say no, then they would have to do it all, they would have to do the work themselves. So I guess that's the question is do you think that we shouldn't be doing this? We should say, state, you go enforce your own laws and inspect your own restaurants, or is it a benefit for Elisa and her team to do it and have those relationships?
Yeah, I'd have to
Yeah.
know more about it, but I'm
Yeah.
fine with what we've got today.
It's
2 years,
Yeah.
I'll learn more in the next 2 years, how's that?
Perfect. We're
In
happy.
simple terms, it's basically the state delegating their authority to the local health authority, the local public health authority, which is us. And it actually mentions commissioners in here,
does.
which we delegate.
Yeah,
Health Department.
and that was part of the reason that this contract was rewritten, was when those counties decided to give back their programs, there was language in the original IGA that made it difficult for OHA to actually, say, close a restaurant, because the IGA said only the local public health authority could do it, not the state. So that's part of the reason why they updated this language.
Okay,
Could you talk about some of the other changes? Will this change how we do our jobs at all?
No,
No substantive changes as far as your work goes?
no, no.
okay. All right, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $200,000 to administer the foodborne illness prevention program on behalf of OHA through June 30th, 2023.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. It's good to see you to talk about, like,
Not COVID.
Our old job?
something that, yeah, you know, I was telling somebody that the other day, and it's true about our health department, not only our public works department, not only are they dealing with wildfire recovery, ice storms, but they gotta pave roads and do all their normal stuff on top of that. It's just amazing the workload that our different departments have had in the last year and a half, and especially the health department, and public works. So really appreciate all the work you've been doing. Okay. Our next item, we're going to do one presentation. I think Brian's here, right? We'll do one presentation for all these three contracts, and then we'll take a motion
So
to.
wait, she's saying that there's an IT information.
Oh, yeah,
technology.
oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you. Yeah, consider approval of amendment number 2 to the software license and maintenance agreement with SEPTIC, Inc. To extend the project completion date, add $569,280.70 for a new contract total of $4,447,439.70 to incorporate multiple change order requests through August 31st, 2025 for the Marion County Health and Human Services Electronic Health Records System. Gary's here. Sorry, I almost passed you over. You probably wouldn't have minded that, right?
Not a bit.
Welcome.
Gary Christopherson, Information Technology. The Information Technology Department partnered with Health and Human Services to replace their aging electronic health records management system named Raintree that no longer meets their business needs. We entered into a contract with a vendor named SEPTIC for a new records management system named Dr. Cloud. This is a full software as a service application hosted in the vendor's cloud service. The contracted go-live date was initially scheduled for December 2021. As with most projects that are this size and scope, a map and gap process was required at the very beginning of this project to map the business requirements to the system functionality and identify any gaps that were missed during the procurement process. SEPTIC initially had forecasted that map and gap process to take 2 weeks. After several months of analysis, there ended up being this change request that is before you. So what was projected to be 2 weeks took many months. So that was kind of an indicator of how big this project was. There was a lot of business requirements. I don't remember the exact number. I think there was over 1,000.
Yeah.
And so something that's that big, it's very, it would be very unlikely that we would hit every single requirement up front. And we also get to learn a lot about that application as we enter into a procurement and do the map and gap. So that's why things like this come out. It's a normal part of the process. We analyze the business requirements, we look at the application. The amendment before you actually encapsulates 21 individual changes that were a result of that map and gap process. The change order does add 7.8 months to the project to accommodate the additional business requirements with an additional cost of $569,000. Also, I just wanted to point out, IT understands that health has additional changes that are currently in flight, and we are currently waiting for an analysis from the vendor on what those could potentially result as a cost or schedule impacts, we don't fully know, so there's more changes coming. The impact of not approving this particular change is that the Health and Human Services Division would be required to use a product that doesn't meet their business needs. And that's why I asked Ryan to come today, so he could specifically speak to those 21 individual changes.
Thanks, Gary. And I don't know that I necessarily want to run down each individual change, but I think the vast majority of them have to do with interfaces that need to be created between our system and other systems that we communicate with. You know, we're really hoping that we can avoid entering data, entering information into multiple systems. So we need this solution to talk to all the various state systems that we do reporting on, Methasoft, which does our methadone program, and other systems that we use. I think part of the reason for the additional time needed as well is I think it's really hard to understate how challenging this project has been when we sort of did a go live, we're ready to go, and then we were hit with COVID, which meant the team had to figure out how to work as a project and work with the vendor largely remotely. We also then, of course, had the wildfire and the ice storm, and as more and more resources in our department got deployed elsewhere to respond to those needs, it impacted our program's availability to be a part of some of the gap analysis, some of the work to help support the EHR project. So, and the vendor, I think, had some similar challenges. The good news is that the additional cost associated with the additional 7 months that were added to the go-live date is also a cost that the vendor is bearing as well. So we did negotiate with them that cost isn't all on us, that is sort of a mutual impact, that both organizations had challenges deploying the sufficient resources during that onset period of time to make sure that the project wasn't delayed. So we aren't bearing the brunt of all of those costs. So I think there was $370,000 or so that the vendor was paying for on their end as well. So I just want to say that this change order does reflect that reduced cost. I think also, as Gary pointed out, when we had our list of 1,000 requirements, I think I don't know that the vendor truly knew what all those requirements really were, and I don't mean that to be that they didn't have the knowledge of it. It's just that when you list a requirement as a sentence, once you sort of get in and you sort of see the workflow and the complexity of our different programs and the work that needs to be done, there's different steps within that or different fields we may need. And so a lot of the changes are minor modifications like that, where it's like, oh, we thought that all you needed to do was this assessment, which would flow a certain way through our system, and you realize that there's other OAR requirements specific to some of the work that we do that really needs to be incorporated into this new system to function for us. So that's a lot of when we start looking at gaps. It was a lot of the details that needed to be added and some functionality that needed to be incorporated into the system to really work for our programs, and the reality that as an organization we have not only behavioral health services, we have addiction treatment, IDD, public health. So we have a wide scope, and I think as an organization we have more diversity in terms of the services we provide than anybody that the vendor has worked with previously. So I think that also there was a lack of understanding maybe of fully what they were getting into to really support an organization like ours. So the project has had some challenges early on, but I think that they're in a good place now. I think the project plan is in a good place, and I think we're continuing to put more and more resources towards this because it is a high priority for us and will allow our workforce to better be able to do their job and support our community and have services delivered in a way that is how we would expect excellent services to be delivered to people, with the availability to access their information, things like patient portals and things to schedule appointments, and other technology that I think we take for granted when it comes to other healthcare entities that we partake in, that we want to make sure our Health and Human Services Department can offer to people.
Jan, do you have any comments on this?
It's a lot of work. It's been a long time, and I think,
You're not on the microphone.
honestly,
Is it on?
you can hear it.
No, I don't know if it's
It's
on,
on.
but
It's on,
Yeah.
yeah, it's on.
I think Brian is absolutely correct. We do such a diversity of service and programs that it's not just medical, it's, behavioral health and medical and prevention and drug and alcohol prevention. So I think, part of it is to be expected in a IT solution this big. I still would want to make sure we're tracking it and we're not trying to change the business of the IT function. I mean, we should be going with that and changing our business process to match that. And I think that's just a future caution, I would say. We should be adapting our work to the system, not trying to customize the system every time. Because then every time it upgrades, we're always tracking down 100 other things we've changed because it doesn't get an automatic upgrade. So I think they're cognizant of that. I think Gary's very well aware of the IT solution, and I think it's going to be positive when it finally gets in. You know, we've been working on it for years, so.
So I did notice in here that, and Ryan, I think either you mentioned it, it's $98,000 per month for an extension or delay in the contract. And if you took the 7.8 months, that would be a lot of money, and they have cut it in half, right?
Right, yes.
So the change orders we're paying for, the 183, so that
Correct.
brings it up
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah, we're paying for the change order, and we're paying for half of
Yeah.
the original contract penalty.
Again,
for-
that was
for
a
the
result
delay.
of the, initially the vendor projected 2 weeks for that map and gap, and it took months. So they absorbed some of that $98,000 per month extension because it took so much longer to complete the task than they had originally forecasted.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out how 569 was half of that, but now I see where it's broke down in
Right,
the
there are
extension
multiple
versus the
components
change
there.
orders. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think maybe the question I have is the mapping gap took a long time, but does the contract say the burden of any delay falls on us, even if it's their fault?
Depends on the particular change.
It
If
had
we
a
just,
date, didn't it? And every month after that, you
Yeah.
get the $98,000.
it depends on the change, right? The vendor forecasted this project to be a certain amount of time. If they under forecast, like in this case, they absorbed some of that cost. If
But we
we
absorbed
just
some of it
decide to
too.
add scope to the project, and it's totally on us, and we didn't ask for it during the procurement process, we would have to absorb those fees. So it just depends on the nature of the change. And in this case, it was a little bit of both. It was a
Yeah.
mix.
And I think oftentimes it's really hard to look at any specific task and assign like 100% blame. So even though we're saying that it took the vendor a lot longer, there's steps within that process where maybe they were waiting on information from us or IT that sometimes takes longer too. So there's a little bit of a back and forth. It's really hard to say that any one specific entity was solely responsible for various delays, but we certainly know that the vendor contributed to a lot of the delays, and we know that we on our end had some, we had to take some ownership for that, which is why we negotiated basically to say, okay, let's split it, let's kind of start fresh. We feel like we're in a good place now, even though we had some kind of delays for various reasons, and we won't try to rehash that in too much detail with them, but we'll each kind of take half accountability and move forward.
And then, Jan, maybe, or Ryan, you can answer. Are these general fund dollars that we're extending, or is it
No,
through
it's
all your
It's-
programs?
It's our Health and Human Services dollars that come out. A lot of it's behavioral health dollars. We have some IDD funding as well that's paying for some and some public health, but it's
Yeah.
not county general
allocated back
fund.
through the programs.
Correct, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's not being charged, it's not county general fund
Yeah.
dollars, no.
I have two questions.
Still green. All right.
So the delay, the 21 changes or additions, did that contribute to the delay?
Yes.
So are we done with that? Are we done adding things? Because it seems like it's costing us a lot of money to keep adding things.
I'm aware of at least 2 more changes that are in the works where we have a package of work that we've delivered to the vendor and said, give us a proposal on what it would take to accommodate these changes.
Yeah, so my understanding is we're waiting on the vendor's response to like, here's the need, this is what the item was, and I don't think we've received that.
I don't think they're this size, but they're definitely changes, and we're waiting for the vendor to bring a proposal back.
Well, I'm not really so worried about the cost of like the item. I mean, some of them are pretty expensive, and it seems like, how did you not know you needed that to begin with? And I understand it's an evolving process over years. But when we're talking about $100,000 a month approximately, because they're gonna take their time, but they're in it to make money. So what's your team doing to make sure we prevent this $100,000 a month being spent going forward? Because it seems really unreasonable to me to do that. Because for me, every $100,000 you spend on this, it's not being put back into a service for the citizens. And I get that we're trying to provide better access and better services through technology, but I'm not thrilled with this dollar amount, to be honest. I think it's a lot of money, and I'm really hoping that there's a more efficient process that you're pulling together to prevent this, not just a delay, but like what Jan said, we at some point need to modify ourselves to work for the system that you're paying for, and it's a significant system. So, I just want to say that on the record. This is a lot of money.
It is, and it's definitely a project. I mean, it's hard to say, having just gone through COVID, that it's a project like we've never experienced before, because I mean, that was certainly a huge project for us, but I think from a technology side, we've never had anything like this in our department that is literally going to reshape how every employee does their job. And we are modifying our workflow to make sure that we have uniformity across programs and it fits within a structured system. But I mean, just thinking about, as we get closer, the training and onboarding of all of our staff on how to use the system, there's a lot of heavy lifts along the way, for sure. I know that IT does primarily sort of the vendor management, contract, project management component. And I do think that we'll need to be holding NSoftTech to their commitments here in a way that we've tried to do, but I mean, there's been some grace given, because again, we had to sort of scramble and figure out how to do this during a pandemic and stay connected to a vendor where you weren't all in the same project room like you normally would be when you're meeting live with something so sophisticated and complex. But we've had time to figure that out now, so there really is no reason why the vendor can't come through on their commitments. And I think that there are, we have some concerns about just their engagement level in some of our conversations. So I mean, I think that and I think we've even talked, Gary, about having some conversations about how to continue to make sure we hold the vendor as accountable as possible. And then we've got to uphold our commitments, and we are looking to add even additional resources to our EHR project team, because as you said, there's a huge penalty as things take longer. So I would much rather bring in resources, have staffing to make sure we can hit our deliverables, because it's much cheaper than having penalty payments on the back end. So we're looking at that kind of from our side of what we can control, and then we have to hold the vendor to the commitments that they've made. And that's I think what we're committed to do.
When they ask for an addition or change order, is there like a time commitment, a response time commitment that's reasonable from the vendor, so that way they're not, dragging it out to try to acquire that extra $98,000?
Yes, whenever we deliver a change request to them, we ask them to provide, a date, and we're managing to those dates.
Okay.
I think they have been reasonable. Again, I think the map and gap process was just a lot bigger than they anticipated, but I can assure you that we live and breathe by the contract, and we know what we asked for and we know what we don't. And we have had some headbutting with the vendor about, hey, we think you need to pay for this, Marion County. And we said, no, there's a requirement. It's right there. It's in the contract. It might be more complicated than you anticipated, but sorry, you said you could do it, now do it. So
Okay.
we are holding them accountable to what we know and was documented. Again, these things were new and clearly not
Sure.
in the contract, so.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think to Commissioner Bethel's point,
Go ahead.
we do want there does need to be some sort of like the change order stop now, right? And whatever changes we need going forward on a new project, because you don't want this to just sort of continue to bleed, right?
Correct. We've definitely got to hit a go live date. And sometimes you can come back around and have a phase 2 where there's some things and tweaks and improvements you can make later on, but we need to be able to successfully implement go live and get started using the system. And then, if it's not something that's absolutely mission critical to functioning on day one, we can deal with that in a future time. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. What's your motion?
My motion. All right, Mr. Chair, I move that we approve amendment number 2 to the software license and maintenance agreement with NSoftTech Incorporated to extend the project completion date, add $569,280.70 for a new contract total of $4,447,439.70, and incorporate multiple change order requests through August 31st, 2025 for the Marion County Health and Human Services electronic health records system.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All I'm going to say is that technology is great and
Challenging.
challenging, yes. Right, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your work. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we get to do one presentation and 3 motions. Presentation on leachate.
I like this.
I'm not going to read all these motions.
I appreciate that.
We're going to do them, though.
You bet. So, good morning. For the record, Brian May, Public Works Environmental Services Division Manager. As mentioned, we have 3 contracts for transportation and disposal of leachate generated at our ash monofill up at the North Marion Transfer Station. So, a couple things come to mind. 1, what's leachate? And 2, why are we doing this? So first of all, leachate is basically the moisture that's going to percolate through that ash monofill, and that's impacted also by rainfall. So we have an active area that's about 8 acres in size. So if you can imagine a nice engineered system designed to collect moisture, that's what it does. And in the winter months, we try to prevent it from collecting moisture by shedding as much as possible. It doesn't always work perfect, so we shed some, but we also retain some that we then have to dispose of properly. As part of our solid waste permit, we're required to have that engineered collection system and then to dispose of it in an approved facility by DEQ. So that we handle it environmentally correct as we move forward. Current practices at the monofill, we take ash during the dry months, again, try to reduce that leachate generation, and then we ship the material to Coffee Butte Landfill where they use it as alternate daily cover, kind of a reuse item in the winter months. So we kind of shift the responsibility for them. They've got a larger active area. They can handle the daily cover requirements. We get reuse requirements, and we avoid that leachate generation because it's quite expensive for us. That being said, we still generate about 2 to 2.5 million gallons a year. If we were to run year-round at North Marion, we generate probably more like 4 to 4.5 million gallons a year. So significantly different volumes and again, more requirements of us to kind of deal with and handle this material. Our current contract expires September 5th of 2025. So as part of that, we did an invitation to bid. That was published on March 29th of 2021. And typically we get 1 respondent. And we had 1 respondent. It's been a great outfit to work with for a number of years. This year we had 3 respondents. So again, kind of a new situation for us. Excitement is we've talked in solid waste, we always love to have options. So now all of a sudden we have options. And it wasn't 3 respondents with the same disposal location. It's actually 3 separate disposal locations. So now we have not only flexibility in who we utilize, but now where does it go? How does it get treated? Making sure it meets DEQ requirements. But at the same time, we've had a lot of interference in the past because we've been taking this material clear out to Boardman in the winter months, right? So during that time frame, you've got ice storms, you have mudslides, we have traffic accidents, we have a bunch of things that limit and restrict our ability to move this material. And being an old landfill manager, the last thing I want is to inventory this material. When it comes in, we really just want to get it out. We don't want to store it, we don't want to retain it, we don't want to have those issues just hanging out at our sites. So again, with the 3 respondents with different locations on DEQ-approved sites, this is going to really benefit our ability to kind of keep that material flowing and not having any issues. The new contracts before you are set where they'll be about 5 years. They'll expire on June 30th of 2026. But we also have an extension option there for another 5 years. The other part of that flexibility and then contract authority that we need, these numbers look huge. And I know they look huge. So as part of that, we had to set these contracts up as if each individual contractor was going to receive 100% of the volume. And not just a typical 2 million gallons, but if it was 4.5 million gallons. Because as you know, we've talked about our contractor relationship with Cabana, we may end up taking that ash 100% of the time at our monofill. So we had to build that flexibility. So when you look at this over the 5-year period, you're looking at over $14 million of contractual authority. In reality, we'll spend less than 5.6, but this just allows that flexibility to move from one contractor to another contractor. It's also stated and definitely clearly defined in the scope that this is at the direction of ourselves. We won't be up to the contractor to determine who or how they get it. And then it's also, there's no guarantee that anyone will get any volume. So again, we're going to go to the cheapest, best options as we move through and make sure we handle this disposal appropriately. So at this time, staff recommends, again, approval of all 3 contracts for the transportation and disposal of leachate from the ash monofill at our North Marion Transfer Station. And if you have any questions, I'd
I do.
answer them.
Our new contract with Covanta, don't they Responsibility for the ash?
They are financially responsible for the disposal of the ash and transportation, yes. So currently, the contractual obligations we have in place with like Coffin Butte or the ability to utilize our airspace at the Montefiore, once those are exhausted, then complete liability shifts to them. Otherwise, they're refunding us for those expenses.
But the leachate is not
It is
part
not,
of that?
no,
Okay.
it's not part of that.
All right,
Yep.
and then, so, Brian, in the past, we've had one contractor, they knew they were gonna be responsible for, this is almost guaranteed income for them.
Correct.
Now that you have three that you don't have any guaranteed income, are you concerned at all that they won't be able to respond? Or is the dollars there, when you call them and say, hey, we need you to take this next week to wherever, are they still gonna go out east, or where are some of these locations they're gonna?
Definitely, our boardman option is one of these in place, for sure. One would be a new location, well, not a new location, but a new transporter. So the River City Environmental actually plans to use Covanta, which we actually have kind of a ability to do that already. So there's not a real understanding of how they propose to do that. And I think that's why we have them listed too, is they are definitely the cheaper option, but whether Covanta, as we know, will be able to handle that volume. So we didn't want to just go in with just that low bid responsibility for the ITB, that we needed that option to utilize others.
So
and the other two are at the exact same price.
So and this was I think we talked about this years ago when we were in this contract. So the Covanta issue is where they'd actually transport it back there to use it to cool down the interface.
They actually, basically injected into boiler space that would reduce the temperatures to allow them to burn more waste.
Yep.
So it's primarily a summer month activity.
That's a new process that they're talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
their liquid waste injection program. Yep.
Right.
And as of this year, as of 2021, they have not taken a single load of our leachate into their program, where last year they handled about 56 loads. The year before that, it was somewhere about 160 loads. So they're kind of not utilizing our liquid as much as they're bringing in other paying customers.
Okay, and that's where this River City would only be 3 million for 100%, because they're not going as far.
Not as far, right, and their total costs are less, yes.
All right, that makes sense.
Yep.
And now I understand it. Okay. Questions?
Yeah, I don't understand why we would approve $14.1 million if we're only gonna spend $5 million. I don't get it, so I don't know if Brian or Jane needs to explain it to me.
So, originally as written, there was no provision in these contracts that, it just sounded like each contractor was going to get this amount of money. But with the revision that's located in Exhibit A, it gives Public Works the discretion to say, we're going to give you the work that we want to give you, and there's no guarantee of work under this contract. So the total amount that I believe they budgeted is 5.6 million. But
The contract authority is to allow us to use each individual, and we had to have them be capable of taking the full amount. So if we chose to use just River City, we had to have them have the full contractual authority, or if we chose Finley Butte Limited Partnership, they still also had we had to have the same contractual authority to do that. As far as a budget authority, we're not budgeting $14 million. We're budgeting more the smaller, the 5.6.
So ultimately, we're gonna approve each one of these contracts, and then if you only use one,
Yep.
then they're in it because you've contracted with them for that ceiling amount.
right.
Correct,
Okay.
and then again, this is for a 5-year period, so we may use River City for this year, and then we may switch if they have a change or something and use another one for the other period.
Got it, okay. And I get why each amount is different, because I looked at the bid quotes.
Yep.
So, okay. All right.
Well, to answer your questions, it does mean that you won't really come back and talk to us if the numbers change, right? So like if we had sort of estimated they're only gonna use 2 million, they're only gonna use, $3 million, whatever, then if we needed to change that, there would have to be a contract amendment. We'd have to go through this process again, right? So this basically allows those changes to happen without it coming back before the board.
So
Correct.
the flexibility allows us to use either one of the three contractors, I think is part of what you're saying. But as far as the rate and the structure that's in place, that's there. The volume's gonna be dependent on rainfall and those types of things. So we right now have only 1.5 million gallons of inventory, and we generate about 2 million. So our budget, we will budget about 1.1 to somewhere in that range for disposal and transportation costs through the budget process. So we would have other interactions if we were to try to exceed those numbers, and to me, that would be something major. We'd actually have a really bad winter here, which we haven't had for a while, but.
Right, no, I think my point is we're likely not to exceed those numbers.
Correct.
And so it's likely that this would be the last conversation we have about this for 5 years.
Yep.
I just wanted to make that point.
Right.
Where the conversation would come in is if they exceeded they have in their budget $5.6 million. If we had a really bad winter and you couldn't use, for example, they couldn't use any River City, and they were doing 100% with one of these other two, and we had to transfer more than what they had budgeted for, we would see that in the budget.
Right.
And potentially we'd have to do a contract amendment as well, so it would come back. So it's their $5.6 million is the total expenditure period
Right.
that they asked for.
Yeah, and if we get a bad winter, then you're gonna come back to us because you need more money no matter what in your year.
And
Well,
ideally,
and to even mess with it even more, we have a lagoon that has a capacity for 12 million gallons. So even if we had 2 bad years in a row, we could almost not haul leachate for 2 years and still have enough capacity to retain it. We just don't want to do those things. So
Right.
most likely in that bad year scenario, we would just stop hauling completely and wait till the new year and make sure we maintain our same budget authority.
yeah, and ideally, it'd be great if Covanta took it all and we didn't have a big winter and we'd be under 3 million.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Okay. So, I don't know, let's see, this is Commissioner Bethel's motion.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna condense them all into one, after talking to Jane. So, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the contract for services with River City Environmental, Inc. in the amount of $3 million, and for Patriot Environmental Services, Inc. in the amount of $5.6 million, and for Finley Butte Limited Partnership in the amount of $5.6 million.
Go ahead.
From the ash monofil located at the North Marion Recycling and Transfer Station through June 30th, 2026.
For the
For the transportation and disposal of leachate water waste from the ash monofil located at the North Marion Recycling and Transportation through June 30th, 2026.
And I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all 3 contracts. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you very much.
That completes our business for the day. Who wants to read the calendar today?
I will, it's my turn. Actually, I did it last week, but I'll still do it. How's that? Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, 9 a.m. We're here in the board session, Senator Hearing Room, first floor, 555 Court Street. And then today at 12 o'clock, we have the Woodburn Marion County meeting located at the Metropolis at 347 North Marion Street, Woodburn. And at 1:15, we have a VOC CAO meeting, executive session if needed pursuant to ORS 192.6602 A, B, D, E, F, H, I, in the Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And tomorrow, Thursday the 5th at 9:30, we have a department head elected official meeting, location Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street, Northeast. And then at 1 p.m. tomorrow, a Health and Human Services Policy meeting, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And on Tuesday, the 10th, we have at 7:30, we have a State and Marion County meeting at the Covered Bridge Cafe, 510 North 3rd Avenue in Staten. And on Tuesday at 9:30, we have management update, location Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then at 11 o'clock on Tuesday, the 10th, we have a work session for information technology update, location Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And at 1:30 on Tuesday, the 10th, we have a work session for community survey, located in the Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street. And then on Wednesday, the 11th, we're back here for board session, Senator Hearing Room, 1st floor, 555 Court Street. And Wednesday, the 11th at 4 p.m., we have a FEMA briefing for local officials, Commissioners Boardroom, 5th floor, 555 Court Street.
Great. So, We're probably not going to Woodburn, are we? So we have I guess we could get back for 1:15, I don't know. Are you going up there?
I'm not. No, I have another meeting, and I'll be calling in tomorrow to both meetings because Kaiser Fest starts tomorrow. In Kaiser, I'm pretty excited. It's my last year of being a major participant. I'm teaching Corey, the new director over there, what to do. So it's going to be a very long 4 days. Bands, parades, fest, all kinds of things.
And cooler weather.
Yeah, yeah. Well, normally we do this event in May. It's usually the third weekend in May, but because of COVID, 2020 was canceled, and then 2021 was canceled, and then, we thought, well, we could pull it off in August. But the summer is really busy for Marion County with activities. So they're gonna move Kaiser Fest back to May for 2022, which will be great. It'll be weird having the sun out all 4 days and no rain.
Well, there's prediction of some rain.
Yeah, 40% on Friday, but even still, it's not May rain. May rain is very different than August rain.
We didn't get enough rain in May this year, that's for sure.
I don't remember May.
We didn't.
I feel like there's so much going on.
That's why
I don't really remember much of the day before yesterday.
That's why our reservoirs are low.
But yesterday was fantastic. That was my first national night out as a commissioner. I had a really great time. I'm exhausted. It's the most peopling I think I've done since I've become a commissioner. Lots of kids to hug and hands to shake, and it was so great. Yeah, I can't wait for next year.
I really enjoyed how different each of the
So different.
the communities did it. I
Yeah.
thought it's some of the things I love about Marion County is how each community really has its own identity, and
I wish I could make it to all of the activities. Like there's a gal from Almsville that was really hoping that we would make it out there, and by the time I saw her request, it was already like 8:30 and I was in North Salem and definitely ready for bed. Sancho's Taco Truck was at Nicole Tartar's. She's like the ad hoc unofficial neighborhood association coordinator for the Jan Ray community. And Marion County Fire District Number 1 was there, and then Kona Ice came. I haven't had a shaved ice cup in a really long time.
I got a brain freeze.
Thanks to Commissioner Cameron, I had one. What was it?
It was
Pina colada and mango.
Yeah,
it was really good.
Really good.
there you go.
It was-
I got on the scale this morning, I could tell I ate a lot yesterday. I actually got up this morning and walked at Riverfront Park. It was so nice out there. And I just realized living downtown how easy it is just to walk across Front Street and go for a nice walk in the park. Yeah.
I just had a thought thinking about Nicole. I chatted with there was a lot of people at that East Salem activity, and I said, what do you guys think if we change the name of your area to New Marion? And people loved it.
I did too. Yeah, people were thrilled.
I think we should do
we
it.
have to start. Yeah, really like looking into that.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned it, and there's a number of people that got really excited.
Yeah,
about
they
that.
were like, we could be called something ourselves, and I was like, I
Yeah.
think so. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's see if
yeah.
we can figure it out.
Got to get the sign shop working on it.
Yeah, it's a big issue because I know to try to change, well, if you could, like Brooks is a community, but I don't know what their mailing address is. Is it Brooks?
It's Salem.
It's Salem, yeah.
It's the post
Or
office.
Kaiser.
Post office.
Brooks is not incorporated, right.
Yeah,
So
we'd
let's-
have to look into like what are all the implications, but I think it's
The
worth
post- The
pursuing.
biggest issue, because I know several of us looked at changing Detroit to Detroit Lake,
Yeah.
because it gets confused with Detroit, Michigan, and it is the Detroit Lake. And it was a big deal with the US Post Office.
Yes, it's a big
Well,
deal.
now that they're closed, who cares? I mean, I
Detroit
keep
Lake.
getting a
They're
bill
only
from my
closed-
PO box, and I told Fritz Graham from Wyden's office, I go, I'm not paying the bill until they open the post
I
office.
thought they were supposed to open this week.
Well, maybe they have, I don't know, I haven't been
Shelley
out.
was telling me.
Well, even Kaiser, some folks in Kaiser also get mail with Salem addresses on it,
Constantly.
right? So
Well, you can mail to, so I used to work for Marion County Fire District Number 1, and my office was located at the Brooks Fire Station, which is right next door to the Brooks US Postal Service building. And you can mail to Brooks 97305 and it will get to you, or Salem
So there's a
97305.
post office in Brooks?
Yeah, right next to the fire station. So the post office just has like a system that says, oh, this is the area, and it goes there. They could figure it out. I mean, they're probably awful to navigate, but I'm game.
Well, and people are used to, you know, a little bit of a different scenario out there anyway. So I think so
Yeah.
long as people know what the deal is, I don't think it'd be a problem.
I feel like we should maybe add it to our community survey as a question.
Yeah. That's not an issue.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the urban growth boundary, so I don't know. I have no idea.
Let's run it down. Let's do the work.
I'd have to look into it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, fun. Well,
All right.
I was also surprised at how enthusiastic. Like, this started as like, hey, what do you guys think about this? And it's turning into people were like, that's a great idea.
yeah, I had a long conversation with a group of about 11 or 12 folks last night that wanted to know how they can formalize so they can't be annexed, and I was like, oh gosh, that's a really big conversation.
Yeah.
But how do they want to create separation from Salem, so it makes it more difficult.
I don't think you can.
Well, I think you
No.
also have to have conversations with
Yeah.
the folks on the border of Corden and see if they don't want to incorporate, then they should put that into their deeds, right? And if they put deed restrictions into that land by Corden, that would, you know, that could potentially really create a block there.
Interesting, okay.
So, yeah, that's, I remember
What,
that
the property they're
conversation.
developing right now?
No, there's a
There's
a number of pieces of land on Corden that if those pieces all get incorporated into the city, then you could have encirclement of
Right.
either Jan Ray or Hayesville. And once you do that, incorporation becomes much more likely. And so if those people who own this piece of property don't want to incorporate, then they could potentially deed restrict their property, right? And that would prevent that type of incorporation from happening, right? Because I think if people choose to incorporate, I don't want to stop somebody
Right,
who
absolutely.
wants that, right? I think what I'm concerned about is people being incorporated against their will.
Right.
Because they get put into an enclave or something, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so convoluted, that process. It's a good thing we have you.
These are really interesting questions.
Yeah. All right. We done?
Yeah, if we're done. Okay, we'll adjourn.